In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.
This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come to America.
Good morning, New York. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here Sunday morning. We have Governor David Paterson, Spiro Georgiadakis, who is the Greek mover, Jesse Arms from the Manhattan Institute, Senator George Borrello, what's going on in New York State, John Terrett on what's going on in the markets, J.T. Fox, and Jay Jackson, the Abacus Group, and he's running a great financial institution, Frank Tarantino from the DEA, Steve Cates on what's going on up in the skies, and let's start off with Mike Stoller on the real estate report.
Good morning. This is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. I have an individual who's been very involved over the past 25 years in all aspects of real estate. He is the managing partner at Alchemy ABR Investment Partners. His name is Brian Ray, and he's been on the show in the past. Brian, thanks for being here.
Always good to see you, Michael.
Okay, so let's talk about the rent that you're getting at your new property on 57th Street on Billionaires Row.
Yeah, we're very excited. 125 West 57th Street. It's been a long time coming. We've been involved with the site for over 6 years in partnership with the Calvary Baptist Church. We actually built them a condo at the base of the office tower and delivered it back to him at the end of 2025. So we're retaining the office tower where we have 17 floors of space to lease, and we have an amenity floor, world class. And then we have a separate retail condo, which we've leased out to one of the top restaurant operators in the country. They're going to launch a new concept with us in New York City, which should be opened up early of 2027.
Let's talk about the rents. In 2019, when you started on this project, you were projecting 160 maybe, if that high.
Probably a little less. So we were fortunate. We had a great partner, Kane International, which is now Kane. I have to mention them. Our timing was very stressful pre-COVID. It was time to close a construction loan, and things went sideways in New York, and we were able to get through that with the help of the Calvary Baptist Church leadership, most wonderful people. And we navigated. We started building through COVID. Our timing was unique in the fact that when we were starting to buy out the project, we had all the inflation when the banks had some problems a few years ago. So our buys were higher than we projected. But one of the great benefits and interesting opportunities we had coming out of COVID was a lot of these great companies, private equity, hedge funds, law firms, family offices. They all wanted new space. They wanted more walkability. And we were the beneficiaries of that. So we got very fortunate where even though our buys were higher than we thought, rents have picked up substantially from our underwriting. And we've been lucky.
I mean, most people would not believe that you have a blended rate in some of the office space as high as $230 a foot.
Yeah, we're heading north of that. We're starting to lease up the tower. We have one of the great leasing teams in New York City, led by Mitch Konsker from JLL and Christine and Kate and Turk and Christine. So we're very fortunate with our leasing team. We've been grinding very, very hard. We've delivered world-class space, views of Central Park. So if you look at our tenant mix, they're mostly private equity and family offices, and they want to be in the Plaza District, and they want to have views of Central Park. We have ceiling-to-floor glass, 14.5-foot ceilings, floor to slab. So it's great product. Minimal columns. We had a great LBG construction management firm built the building for us. Great architects. We had Gensler do the interior of the amenity floor, which is truly unique and special. And we had FX Collaborative design the building from inside out. So
let's talk about some of the condominium projects you're working on in New York City.
Well, the condos are things that are kind of in the pipeline. We're more focused on some of the rental buildings we're building. Condos there's a lot of action, a lot of activity. I'd rather my partners, Ken and Joel, speak to that next time they're on your show.
Right.
But we've been fortunate during that same downturn with the inflationary periods and the banks went down. We were able to buy 2 great sites on the Upper East Side to build rental towers.
Where are they?
One's on 88th and 2nd, and that building will be delivered in the fall.
How many units?
That building on 88th and 2nd is about 45 units. It's all fair market. It was a 5-parcel assemblage. We sold off 2 that were existing buildings, and we built along the avenue at 88th and 2nd. And that's all fair market. Rents, obviously, it's a very tight market. There's a lot of word on what's going on. So we're very optimistic about where rents are, where they're going.
What do you project the rents?
Definitely north of $135 a foot.
$135 a foot.
Yeah.
So that equivalates into what for a 1-bedroom?
1-bedroom, could be, $12,000, $13,000 a month. We have some 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. If you look at what we're building, the majority of our units are 3 bedrooms. We're catering to that Upper East Side family that's not ready to buy yet, that has kids in school.
So how large are these units?
They average, 900 to 1,500 square feet, and then some of the bigger units are closer to, 2,000. But we're excited on that building. And then we're building another building. We just closed financing with Helaba. Was in the media lately on our First Avenue project. And that is a 45X project. That building...
Explain what a 485X is.
45X really replaced 421A. I think we talked about it a little bit when I was on your show last. Basically, it's an affordability allowance with a tax abatement to build affordable housing. So about 20% of our units, we'll call it, are going to be rent stabilized, and the rest are fair market. So we're excited on that project. Very similar underwriting to what we're going to see on 88th and 2nd. We did a great loan with Helaba. We have another great lender, Affinius, did our loan up on 88th and 2nd. They did a loan for us. We built a tower in Chelsea on 23rd and 8th. We completed about 2 years ago. They were a lender there. So we like to come back and do deals with the same lenders and same partners, and we have great partners.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Have me back anytime, my friend.
Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Jay Jackson, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Abacus Global Group. His financial company predicts the life expectancy of almost anybody and buys back insurance policies. Well, Jay, did I describe it right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would just make sure we're clear. The symbol is A Apple, B Boy, X X-ray, just so all the listeners have it. And you did describe the company, I think, really well. And it's in layman terms, we use data, updated medical data, to help people better understand, right, where they are in their position in life today and what the outcomes look later. John, what's so important is, what's the number one fear of somebody entering retirement? It's running out of money, right? Shouldn't they have a better understanding of how long they're going to be in retirement? And that type of financial data can be applied in lots of different ways. We also use it to give them a current value of their life insurance policy. That was something that they took out to their family.
You know what the scary thing is? That you're 90% of the time you're correct. I'm scared to have you run a dossier on me.
Well, you know what's interesting, though, is that wouldn't you rather have me be greater than 90% correct than not correct at all and putting out false data? But what you touch on is super important. A lot of people might say, I'm afraid of knowing what that data is because I don't want to impact the way I look at life. My point is very much the opposite. This should help you look at a more positive way in life. Listen, John, we're not going to be here forever. When we start to think about our planning, we need to have a better and clearer understanding of what that means.
You were on with my friend Greg Kelly a couple of weeks ago. Give us some statistics that you told Greg.
Yeah, some of the things that we were focused on was just getting a better understanding of how we think about our finances in retirement. Because ultimately what happens is 9 times out of 10, what people do is they're so concerned of running out of money, they don't spend enough to take care of themselves. And ultimately where that leads them is a place that we forget about mental health. Mental health can be a crisis in a lot of areas, but here's something people don't understand. The population segment with the highest suicide rate by age, you know what that is? Over the age of 75. The highest suicide rate in the United States. It's crazy. And it's all because when we think about this, right, we're so afraid of saying, oh, man, do I want to know the results? My point is once you get there, you lose sight of what's really valuable, what's really important. What our premise is, by giving you this data, you can actually have a huge impact on your life, meaning what's your most valuable asset? Everybody thinks it's their car, their home, their whatever, watch, who knows? I say it's time. And if I can give you time back, we have really given you something powerful in the sense of understanding how much time you have left. Because if you're age 65, you've got a 50-50 shot to live into 90. How are you having those conversations? Are you looking at all your assets, including your life insurance policy? That's an asset, John. That's personal property that can be sold and utilized today versus waiting when you pass away.
Now, what's the age groups that people start to look at that? Is it at 65? Is it at 70? Is it at 75? When do you start to think about it?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think at 65, people are fine-tuning what's going to happen, right? And then when they get into their 70s, everything changes. Physically, they change, and then financially, they change. They're downsizing. They're looking at a lot of things a little bit more closely. And 9 times out of 10, this is what every life insurance policyholder does. They just stop making payments. And that's a tragedy, right? Because they're just leaving money on the table. When that happens, they cancel the contract, insurance company wins. If they visit with us, we could say, hey, that contract may be worth several $100,000 in today's value. Use that capital to fund your retirement, and your heirs will appreciate you more for it.
Now, I would look at it as good news in a different way. Well, let's say I'm 75 right now, and I said to you do the analysis on me, and you say, oh, you're going to live to 85. Then the other thing I may do is try to eat healthier, have more examinations, and try to extend that life.
That's exactly right. We give you that data, and we have all the data to support that says, by the way, John, I would come to you and say, one of the biggest impacts that you can make to your lifespan and your health span, for that matter, is exercise, right? Go for a walk and put some weights in your hands. Understand that using weights is super, super important. So eating healthy, making some of those changes. Like there's a couple things that really change people in life. See, you ever hear about that person that has the heart attack and all of a sudden they get healthy? Why wait till the heart attack? My question and what Greg and I spoke about and what you and I want to focus about, I'm trying to flip people's mindset to say, listen, if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you've got to answer this question every single day. Look in the mirror and ask, what would my 80-year-old self say to me right now? We all want to go back in time, right? But it would be like, you know what?
Eat less steak. Eat less steak and have more fish, I guess.
Maybe, but I would say steak's okay, right? If you're getting protein, I think it would probably say things like, I don't want to sit in a wheelchair right now.
Yeah.
I want to be as mobile as I can. I want to be active. I want to be engaged. We've got this silver tsunami of baby boomers who are starting to adopt this. And what Abacus is doing that's so different, we're building customized solutions for them based on their lifespan and how they can impact it by making these improvements.
Jay Jackson, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning, and thank you for the tips. And I think it can be helpful in many, many ways. And let's catch up again real soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Oh, it's out of here. Home run Ferry Hawks.
Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball. Come out to the ballpark as the Ferry Hawks welcome in the Charleston Dirty Birds May 5th through the 10th. Grab the kids and come on out. We kick it off on Tuesday, May 5th with Cinco de Baseball with $5 tickets and $5 food and beverage specials. And we end the week as we celebrate all moms on Mother's Day. Moms get in free. Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Governor David Paterson, one common sense guy. Governor, give us your feelings on a Sunday morning.
Well, John, on Friday, the Fed appraised gas prices. They're going back to $4 where they were, and they think it'll even be more than that. And then we've got situations where people were thinking about traveling during the summer, and they're going to have to, decide If they can afford to do that, riding the train is going to cost more money. Riding an airplane is going to cost more money. They used to say people put money in their pockets and went to the supermarket and brought home food in bags. Now people are going to have to put bags of money to the supermarket and bring home money in their pockets. It's that kind of situation. But at the same time, it's really unfortunate that when we look back just in the past couple of months, when President Trump first attacked Iran, no one said a word. I mean, there are always people who say something. But basically, the country totally understood why he wanted to do it, and everybody was good about that. But now when you run into a couple of issues when you're trying to finish the job, they're lining up like they did this past Thursday in Congress and lashing out at everybody in the administration. And you've got these situations that they said that Pete Hegseth, that one of his plans was actually a war violation. In other words, something that should not be allowed. I don't know what they're talking about. Iran is the country that said they were going to attack the United States. We never said we were going to attack them. But when someone says they're going to attack you, what should you do? Just stand there and take it? And I think that's where the common sense that you talk about is really missing in these days, just, in the past few weeks, because people don't seem to understand that things just don't materialize because you want them to. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of negotiating, and that's what I think the country's doing right now. And I think most reasonable people would not be as critical as what I saw among the House members on Thursday.
How do we get all the Democrats and Republicans to work together like they used to?
Well, it's hard to actually explain it because a lot of the Democrats are not even acting like Democrats. They're acting like socialists, and some of them are socialists. So I think that I've been talking to a few people. We want to get some people who still believe in the Democratic Party, who don't hate the Republican Party, and see if, we can't start to, in the public discussion, get people to understand that you don't have to be opposed to everything because the other party introduced it. And for some reason, right now, the group that is in power or the minority party in the House does not seem to know how to be heard and be taken seriously. Now, I spent 15 years in Albany in the Senate minority. We never won, John, ever. What I did was I went to see the majority leader, Joe Bruno, and I said, I'm not going to participate in this fighting that's been going on all these years. When there's a problem, we're going to sit down and work it out, and we did. So I'm just hoping that, in some quarters of the country, the parties can work together even if they don't vote the same way, but certainly not in New York.
What else is on your mind this Sunday morning? We got time for one more thing.
Well, just speaking to exactly the same point, I think back to what's written about Ronald Reagan when he was president and Tip O'Neill was the speaker, and they would have these big disagreements in public, and then sometimes they'd socialize together, and then they'd get back to arguing about the budget or something, and Tip O'Neill would go by the White House, and after 2 or 3 scotches, everything was worked out. It's almost like romantic to hear how well people respected each other in those days where they don't today.
We got to go back to those days, Governor, and I think the common sense Democrats, and there's a lot of them around, have to get together and sit down and say, enough is enough. We don't need this craziness, because if that craziness exists, you know what's going to happen to the Democratic Party, and I don't want to see it happen to the Democratic Party. I want, equal. You're going to lose 49 states like you did before under who was the presidential candidate, McCarthy? Well, Governor Patterson, thank you for coming on this Sunday morning, and thank you for your common sense.
Thank you, John. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Senator George Borrello. Well, Senator Borrello, what the hell is going on in Albany?
Well, that's a good question. We're all asking. We just passed our 8th extender for the budget, which just keeps services operating while Democrats continue to fight amongst themselves. And the thing is, they don't really disagree on raising taxes and spending more money. They all agree on that. It's another record-breaking proposed budget. But what they can't
Does anybody in Albany ever say, can we make things more efficient to bring things down?
Well, unfortunately, I would say that's not in their playbook. It's not about being more efficient. It's about spending more and creating more burdens, particularly for the working class and for businesses. And that's kind of where we are right now. The governor sees the political liability of the climate agenda that's already raised the cost of electricity. I mean, every month when you open your utility bills, you're seeing the impact of the so-called CLCPA, the Climate Act, on everything, particularly your utility bill. But it's not enough for them. They have this dangerous agenda that they have sued about the governor on recently, basically saying we want to continue to push forward. But interestingly enough, that's what the governor is holding out on, because she knows this could hurt her in the election coming in November.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that could hurt her in the election. First of all, everybody's saying she has to provide checks and balances on the mayoral race.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about it. Right now, the tail is wagging the dog, as they say. Right now, Mayor Mamdani seems to have more clout and more political capital than the governor, and she's constantly, I guess, trying to play catch-up. But you brought up some very important things. He's claiming victory when we haven't even had a budget passed yet, that he's going to get his pied-à-terre tax, which is a fancy French term for adding property taxes on top of property taxes in a state that already has the highest property tax in the nation. So the governor needs to absolutely push back, and she needs to start supporting the working class and the people who pay the bills here in New York State.
Well, I think that the other problem is, and I speak every week to our guy in charge of the New York City partnership now, Mr. Phillip, and he represents 300 of the largest companies in New York City, and I speak to our friend up north, Mr. Zuber, that represents 3,000 companies upstate New York, and a lot of them are leaving.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And by the way, speaking of the Business Council and Paul Zuber, they just did a survey. 70% of New Yorkers believe that this climate agenda is going to raise the cost of their living. 70% believe it's going to cost them more simply to meet these climate mandates. And so this is what the governor sees. And now this amicus brief that was filed in the lawsuit, 17 Democrats signed it, admitting that they know that the Climate Act is going to raise costs for New Yorkers, and they don't care. They know that there is a tremendous cost, multiple billions of dollars. They actually called out multiple billions of dollars, but they don't care. This radical climate agenda is more important to anything else, even devastating New York's economy. That's the dangerous part of this.
There's 300,000 employees in New York City, approximately 200,000 in New York State. That's 500,000 employees that if Moody's or S&P put you on the crap list and you can't borrow money, that means maybe some of those employees have to get laid off. Would that get them upset?
Well, yeah, you know the impact of even a small change in an interest rate bond ratings and the interest rates that you pay to bond, and that would have a devastating impact. There's no doubt about it. But unfortunately, my Democrat colleagues in particular really don't understand finances. They most of them have never really had a job outside of government, so they live off of talking points and radical agendas, and this thought that and hope that some things will just get worked out. There's also an arrogance to this. There's an arrogance thinking that people just will grin and bear it here in New York. That all the businesses that are continuing to to place more burdens on will just keep absorbing it, and that's not the reality. We're seeing that already. Billions upon billions of dollars of taxable income have left New York under one-party Democrat rule.
Thank you so much, Senator Borrello, for coming in today on Sunday, and God bless you and God bless America.
God bless.
With us today is Jesse Arm from the Manhattan Institute, and he's the chief of staff. Well, Jesse, I mean, where do you think we are?
I'm struck this week by all of these big blue city mayors who seem to be very excited about chasing out the doers, the job creators, the builders in the cities that are sort of the stars of America. We've got, obviously, in our backyard, Zohran Mamdani, who's instituting a tax regime that is going to make it a lot less enticing for businesses to create and grow here. But also out in Seattle on the West Coast, we have the socialist mayor there who just responded to an exodus of wealth in her state by laughing and saying bye, genuinely seeming excited about seeing this migration southward or just outward toward red states of the people who drive growth in blue America, and I'm concerned about it.
If we chase out the middle class out of New York and New York State, and we chase out businesses out of New York City, New York State, especially New York City, where right now J.P. Morgan, who just built a $4 billion building, has less employees in New York than they do in Texas. So if we chase them out, the people that are going to suffer at the end are the employees of New York City, New York State, because once S&P and Moody's put you on the crap list, you're not going to have money to pay your payroll.
Yeah, it's sort of an old joke, right? The non-common sense folks, what they really want is equality, but even if it means we're all equally poor. And maybe that wasn't such an old joke. It seems sort of dark to talk about, but it really is important that people recognize that taxing the rich and the rich need to leave are contradictions in terms. They are statements with important implications about each other. And it feels increasingly like these folks who are pushing this line, the sort of socialist class, it's a drive that's being more geared toward hatred for the rich than concern for the poor. And I think that does extend to estate tax, income tax, disregard for public safety in these cities, of which the poor is disproportionately affected and can't kind of protect themselves from it, or put themselves in a bubble where they don't apply, it doesn't apply to them, call an Uber to get everywhere or have a driver take them from location to location. The big thing here, John, look at also the mayor of New York, right? Putting Ken Griffin on blast, individually targeting a guy who's got a massive real estate project that's going to be responsible for a lot of growth and a lot of jobs right in Midtown, that and the mayor makes him out to be some sort of enemy for doing that. It's disturbing. And after the billionaire class leaves, what's going to happen? The bureaucrats are going to turn their sights on the savings of regular working class city dwellers in these places.
So what do we do?
I do think that one thing that really stands out to me, and this is sort of underemphasized in the debate we're obviously having about gerrymandering or redistricting. The red states are carving up their congressional districts in such a way that there are very few Democrats with representation. The blue states are responding in turn by carving up their states in such a way where there's very little Republican representation. And it's sort of a ratcheting up of these tensions in both directions. And I realize that seems sort of disconnected, but I actually think it's all of a piece, because the socialists who increasingly are governing these big blue cities, right, they're actively encouraging this out-migration. And as you have the more prosperous Americans beginning to resettle in red America, they're bringing these jobs, they're bringing investment, they're bringing opportunity, and they're fueling growth in places that welcome it and incentivizing others to come along and follow.
So the big blue states are going to have a problem. It's just a matter of time. And the problem is, I just did an op-ed piece that if you don't have smart enough politicians in the blue states, then they're going to blow up. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, so you see where I'm going with this. There's obviously impending fiscal collapse in a lot of these places because they won't have the tax base to do the big government things they want. But beyond that, they're fighting these redistricting wars, but by the time the 2030 or 2040 census rolls around, when we give out states their electoral college votes and we essentially determine how important they are and how many representatives in Congress they get, all this chest-thumping, democratic gerrymandering in the world isn't going to do much good if it's the red states that are continuing to boom with population while blue states are bleeding it, not just population and voters, but they're also bleeding wealth.
Jesse Arm, Manhattan Institute. Let's keep talking. Let's keep letting all New Yorkers know what's going on.
Appreciate it, John. Great to be with you.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Frank Tarantino, the Associate Chief of Operations for the DEA for the Northeast region. Frank, we were together the other day, and I said to you, I dream about a drug-free America.
You know, John, that is a very optimistic and realistic viewpoint, and that is why the DEA has started with what we call Fentanyl-Free America. Fentanyl-Free America is our unwavering commitment to protect the United States from synthetic opioids, specifically by disrupting, the entire fentanyl supply chain, reducing its availability that hit our streets, but also, most importantly, to save American lives. We focus primarily during this Fentanyl-Free America surge, which just ended yesterday, on increased enforcement operations throughout the Northeast region, John, and we've had some significant success. We're not done, but we've made some substantial progress in this fight against fentanyl. And I'd like to share with you today some of those successes.
Well, tell us. Because I dream of a completely drug-free, but I'll take fentanyl-free.
So, John, during the month-long surge in the Northeast region, we seized 350 kilograms of fentanyl, 573 arrests, almost 435 kilograms of cocaine, nearly $8 million in cryptocurrency, and 240 kilograms of methamphetamine. But I want to focus primarily on the fentanyl. 350 kilograms of fentanyl may not resonate with our listeners today, so let me put it into context. 350 kilograms of fentanyl is the equivalent of approximately 17 million lethal doses of fentanyl, which is the equivalent of 5 states in the Northeast population: Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Jersey. And if that doesn't resonate with our listeners today, that's the equivalent of 240 fully sold out NFL stadiums across the country. We're talking about a devastating effect on our communities. And throughout the Northeast, we've had tremendous successes. We had an incredible operation in our Washington, D.C. area by our Washington Division office that spanned all the way up into New York. They seized a tremendous amount of different types of drugs, to include 63 pounds of methamphetamine, made a number of different arrests. But that is specifically, John, in support of the Safe and Beautiful Task Force in Washington, D.C., which is a priority for our president. But I want to talk more specifically about New York. In New York, we seized 200 kilograms of fentanyl in that 1 month-long surge. John, that's the equivalent of 10 million lethal doses. That's the entire population of the city of New York. So that's the kind of devastating effect that this illicit, very potent, very lethal drug has on our community. And that's the work that our men and women of the Drug Enforcement Administration, along with all of our partners, are doing each and every day to protect this country. Because really, John, it's about protecting the United States of America and our citizens.
And our kids, which is very important to all of us.
That's right, John. We believe very strongly that our children are worth fighting for, our communities are worth fighting for, and our future is worth fighting for. And that's why the DEA has doubled down and refocused its efforts on increased enforcement during Fentanyl-Free America, and most specifically during this last 30-day surge.
Frank Tarantino, since we plowed down on Mexico for the fentanyl, and since we took over Venezuela, and hopefully those boats are not coming in anymore, how do you see the Northeast region? Is there less fentanyl, less drugs around?
Well, John, this increased effort, not just here in the Northeast region, but across the country and all over the world, has had a dramatic effect on how the cartels operate, how these transnational criminal organizations are moving their illicit drugs and proceeds around the world. And this is an increased effort. So we're going to maintain this momentum. We have a lot of work left to do, but the men and women of the DEA have risen to the occasion, and they're willing to meet the moment because, again, this is about protecting America. And we will continue, John, to work with all of our partners, because it really is about the partnerships. We can't do anything by ourselves, and we recognize that the state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies, along with the Department of War and the intelligence community, add significant value to our fight.
Well, Frank Tarantino, Associate Chief of Operations for the DEA for the whole Northeast region, thank you so much for coming in. And we worry about our kids. We worry about our relatives. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for making our city and our country and the Northeast region safer.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you for championing our message and for supporting our efforts.
Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
Who is calling in today? J.T. Fox, the Canadian-American businessman. Well, JT, tell us, what's the newest ventures you're in?
Oh, well, first of all, as we talked about AI, I mean, it's just what it's doing. And I think there's still people who don't understand. Mark Cuban told me we are in the first inning of preseason on first base and AI. That's how new we are as well. And who knows? Very soon you won't have to do this show because we can clone your voice and you can tell them what to do and then, enjoy life.
Well, I actually was going to use Abraham Lincoln and interview him tomorrow.
You could technically do that if you just take a picture of Abraham Lincoln. I kid you not. Like, type in what you want to do, and he voice talks. You can bring anybody back to life.
But how can they do it? Because Abraham Lincoln, is there any real voice indication? So it would have to be somebody that existed so AI could do the research on what his voice sounds like.
But if no one knows what his voice sounds like, then you can put any voice because no one knows what it sounds like, and you could say that's the voice.
Oh, either that or we have to find some old actors that played Abraham Lincoln in the movies and use them.
You know what? We could do whatever you want. In fact, I plan on your voice is very hard to clone. For some reason, we've got it, but your voice is extremely hard to clone. I don't know what it is.
Now, tell us what you're doing now.
Well, we were talking about what are the next 3 big jobs that are happening right now. And I think there's a lot have to do in New York City when you walk through the streets. Trades, AI is not going to replace that. And plumbing, HVAC, electrical. Anything that AI cannot replace, you're going to see in New York City, because I'm seeing a shortage all across the United States as well in the world. And until immigration laws open up where we can bring people from other countries to fulfill that, you're going to see your cost of your plumbers, your electricians, and now electricians make a lot of money with all these data centers. I mean, I know some of them making $350,000 to $400,000 just to be an electrician. And then plumbing, because
in other words, there's a shortage of electricians.
Well, plumbers as well. Nobody's going to plumbing school.
You talk about my book. You know what I tell people? I tell people the fact is, if you are the best in something, then you're gonna do well in life.
Of course.
So you got to pick and say, what do you want to be the best in?
But there's some things you want to be. You could be the best baker. I guess unless you're branded, it's not going to make a difference, right? So a lot of people they say, well, this is what I love.
But you also have to have leadership, and if you're the best baker in only one bakery, you're not going to do that good.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think?
But if you have leadership and you're able to open up 5,000 bakeries, then you're going to do well.
I'm curious, what are you the best at? What do you think that you're the best at?
I'm a good learner. In other words, I usually become better than my teachers.
I will say this, I'm knowing you very well. Number one, you're probably the most common sense person I've ever met. And number two, you know how to stay in the middle and go whatever side as long as it's common sense. And you are a bridge to any relationship. You're with a few people.
You know what I tell politicians?
What?
How do you pick a subject that you're going to talk about? If 80% of the people say, that's common sense, then that's what you do.
The problem with common sense, it's not as common as you and I think.
That's the problem. So let's get on with the interview.
All right, so number one is trades. Number two, this is going to surprise you, AI employee designers. Someone comes into your radio station, you're like, listen, there's a lot of admin stuff. My people are being bogged down. Build me a workflow, like step by step. What I mean says, find me the manual task of what I'm doing. And sometimes it's as easy as having your people on the computer, the AI saying what keys and where are they clicking, and put that in there. By the way, you're talking about, and I'm telling this, between $150 to $700 an hour is what the going rate to be an AI employee designer. Who would have thought, John, that a year ago, there's a whole market now for people to design non-humans to do the work of humans? I mean, how do you feel about that?
I feel that, I'll tell you, I think some of the movies that we saw 20, 30, 40 years ago, look, Flash Gordon came true. Star Trek is coming true.
But are you a believer, though, AI?
You know what's coming true?
What? With
drones and Terminator 1. I don't think you're going to have any more soldiers. I think they're going to send in robots.
I agree. I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a little butterfly that's designed by a Chinese company that's a little AI drone butterfly, and it goes, flies around, goes straight to someone's head, and then creates an electrical shock inside the brain and blows up the brain from inside as a weapon. That's how scary some of that stuff could be. And there's no regulation on it. And you know why there's no regulation? It's because
the politicians are not smart enough to protect against it.
Well, that too. But here's another part. Is that unlike Google, when they came up, they wanted privacy. What they're saying, law enforcement, hey, you want to look at records, we'll report things. And so they're trying to be open and transparent, so there's no regulation. So they're making billions of dollars. I mean, think about how these companies have become valuable by taking our private information. Anything you put in the free AIs, they actually can use again to Googleable and sell and everything. And I think people don't know that. And they think they're getting something for free. But there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world.
There's no free lunch.
There's no free lunch.
Now, AI, what else?
I think the third one is also, too, this ability of having anything that is trade schools, beauty schools, AI schools.
Somebody has to do it.
But the universities are not teaching. You know how crazy it is? There's no children that will ever be smarter than AI. And they have never taught financial literacy in school. They're not even talking about AI. In fact, they're trying to ban it and stuff like that. And so in the end of the day, that's the biggest issue, is that we're always slowly behind. But you know who's teaching AI in schools? The Chinese, Singaporeans, and Asia. And we're always so behind in this education system as well, because everyone's afraid of being replaced.
J.T. Fox, Canadian-American businessman, actually worldwide businessman. Thank you for coming on this Sunday morning, and let's catch up again real soon.
Love you, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Like every Sunday, Steve Cates is with us, otherwise known as Dr. Sky. Steve, tell us the things that are going to tickle our mind.
Well, good morning, John. Happy May to you and the listeners. We begin, of course, on Mars. Once again, more information coming to us from the rover that never quits. Curiosity rover, John, has actually identified more organic molecules on the surface of Mars. And just recently, to add to what they've already found, they're now seeing maybe 21 carbon-containing molecules, 7 new ones to be exact. A lot of them center around nitrogen. And this particular region where the spacecraft Curiosity is called the Mary Anning Site. Why is that? It's named after a British fossil collector. And John, it goes to the point that maybe more about the story of life on Mars will soon be proven. And what they do is they take these little samples, the rover, it crushes the little rocks, puts them into a little oven, the acronym for SAM, heats them up, and this little Curiosity rover, John, has been on the surface of Mars for well over 4,800 Martian days. And a Martian day is 39 minutes longer than an Earth day. How about that?
That is unbelievable. I am glad that thing is still alive and looking around. And I personally believe that at one time Mars had more life on it than we see now. I really believe that.
I agree, John. Yes.
What other things can tickle our mind on a Sunday morning?
Well, for space fans, here's something interesting. Probably as early as September, NASA will launch the next in the Great Space Telescope design. It's called the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope. It's in the infrared. In other words, it sees what the human eye doesn't. It's going to study dark energy, exoplanets. And in addition to the Hubble and the James Webb, who was Nancy Grace Roman? She was the chief scientist and astronomer at NASA way back when. And this, John, will be put way out to a point called the Lagrange point, meaning it will be literally like 1 million miles away from the Earth doing great science, and that's, of course, what we want to hear. And, John, we conclude every week with the mystery of the week. And how about this one? The story in the aviation world, the mystery of Amelia Earhart. Now, many people have heard the name. Born in Kansas in 1897, she, of course, was lost, never heard from again, her and her co-pilot navigator, Fred Noonan, July 2, 1937. But what's interesting, John, in our short program today, she was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic in 1932, first woman to fly nonstop across the USA, and the first woman to fly, how about this, from Mexico City to Newark, New Jersey, the tiny airport then, in 1932. But what about her disappearance, John? Supposedly, she was trying to find Howland Island. They didn't find it. Some say she crash-landed on a little place called Gardner Island. But the mystery continues. Other bizarre, well, maybe even conspiracy theories say that her and her co-pilot were captured and then executed, sadly, by the Japanese somewhere in the Pacific. But the mystery, John, of Amelia Earhart, she was the first woman to receive the Distinguished Flying Cross. Amazing. But yet,
well, let me tell you, she had a lot of courage, and she did things. It takes a lot of courage to do, and God save her soul wherever he may be. And there was a Star Trek episode at one point that she was abducted by the aliens, and nobody really knows what happened to her. There's another story that says that she was actually spying on the Japanese, and they got even with her.
You bet. So, lots of mysteries.
A lot of mysteries. Now, you're on every Saturday and Sunday. Saturday morning from midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern Time, and on Sunday morning, midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern Time. And I enjoy listening to you. I enjoy your mysteries. I enjoy what's going on in outer space. And thank you for everything you do.
Well, John, it's an honor to be on your station and be part of the family as we reach everywhere in the world. And I do remind everybody, simply always remember to keep your feet on the ground, your eyes to the skies. And we wish everybody a beautiful, healthy, and happy and joyous Sunday. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Spiro Georgiakis. I mean, even I'm having difficulty pronouncing Greek names. He's the owner of Good Greek Moving. Well, Spiro, what the heck is going on? I know the price of gasoline and diesel fuel are up, and talk to us about it.
Yeah, John, it's a big problem for all truckers. You know, I'm in specialized transportation with the moving and storage, but all trucking businesses, freight and otherwise, fuel is a problem. But we know why it's a problem. Unlike in years past, where it was to our own demise. We were creating our own problem. It's a little different. You know, we know that it's the Iran conflict, obviously.
Yeah, we were hoping, Spiro, that this conflict will take 30 days, then it became 45 days, and now maybe it's 60 days. But in my opinion, being in the oil business, it's a short-term conflict. And I'll give you my second opinion. There's no shortages of gasoline or diesel fuel in North America. And the big producers that take the product out of the ground are following Brent, which has a problem because of the Strait of Hormuz. How can we help businesses in North America and the United States like you? And Spirit Airlines has the same problem.
That's right. I was just going to say Spirit Airlines has the same problem, and we all have to make adjustments. Whether it's price adjustments or personnel. That's what good businesses have to do to survive. And we got to keep our fingers on the pulse. We got to know what's going on. And I have faith. I have faith.
I have the same faith. I have the same faith. We're allowing Iran to have a nuclear bomb is non-negotiable because someday they'll give it to Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis, and then somebody will have a major problem. And I don't understand why the French and the Germans are objecting to no nuclear bombs for Iran.
John, I'm a New Yorker like you, and I'll never forget 1979 what happened. And for 47 years, I've lived with that. We've all lived with it. That invisible guillotine over our heads. Of course they would use a nuclear bomb. They've proved that. They bombed everybody. And Greece, Italy, France, all these countries are within reach. Today, they're within reach. They could never have a nuclear bomb.
The Germans the other day, the prime minister said to why not let them having a nuclear weapon? I mean, that is, for Germans, that's really stupid, isn't it?
That is unbelievable. For a nation that should want to bury that kind of a past, why remind us? Why remind us why people shouldn't have that type of weaponry that can't be trusted in this world as good neighbors, as a state?
I think what you have to do, running a business, because I ran a lot of small businesses, and you got a major business, you're expanding all over the United States, maybe you should just put a temporary surcharge on it while the war is on.
The fuel surcharge has always been, an itemized cost on all freight bills, bill ladings. It's always been there. We raised it, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and we've not raised it since. So for the last 5 or 6 years, the surcharge hasn't been raised. It's been static, but I would love to lower it, but we can't. So I find other ways to help the customer. We lower some of our hourly rates, or we give them more value added, right? And we kind of we try to help them, but at the same time, interest rates, fuel, these are things that are out of our control, and any business owners. So we do what we can.
Well, and the other thing, President Trump is trying to bring down interest rates, and Chairman Powell is not cooperating it, and he's using the war, which is temporary, as an excuse.
We know that that's political, and we know that that's ego-driven. He's just trying to slight the president, and it's amazing that not everybody sees that, because it hurts all of us. All of us. I don't care how you vote. At the end of the day, the finances, they affect every household. I can't wait for a change there, and, again, a change for the better.
Spiro Georgidakis, did I say it right yet?
That's it. You got it.
The owner of Good Greek Moving. What is your webpage in case people want to call you or text you?
It's goodgreek.com. Goodgreek.com.
National and international. I'll always remember the word goodgreek.com. Thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning, and good luck. And we're all going to survive, and we're all going to live long and prosper.
God bless. Thank you, John.
Take care. With us today is John Terrett. Well, the stock market is strong, and John, fill us in.
Well, the stock market has been flirting with record levels most of last week, as you know, but it was really about big tech and the Magnificent Seven in the past 5 trading days. Let me run through them bit by bit, but quickly. Apple beat Wall Street expectations largely because of iPhone sales in China. And we heard from John Turnus, who's the new incoming CEO. He said that there's an incredible roadmap for Apple ahead. He wouldn't say what it was, of course. He said that this is the most exciting time in his 25 years at Apple. Alphabet / Google, 18% of their business is now coming from the cloud. Amazon, AWS, its cloud business, has had 15 straight quarters of growth. Microsoft, there were worries on Wall Street about capital expenditure, though Azure, their cloud business, did very well. Meta Platforms, massive increase in capital expenditure. Wall Street is worried that they simply won't make a return on that investment, and Mark Zuckerberg didn't say very much about it or do anything to quell his fears when he spoke on the call last week. So that's 5 of the Magnificent Seven. We've already heard from Tesla. Netflix is kind of a member as well. The next one will be NVIDIA, the chip maker, and that comes up on May the 20th. The other big story of the week, of course, Jerome Powell holding his last meeting as chairman of the Federal Reserve, and that interest rate decision staying the same. He stays on as a member of the Board of Governors, which is his right to do. The big crypto story of the week, this is conference season for crypto people, so they're all in Las Vegas, LA, and Miami over the coming week. And in the week ahead, John, next Friday we get the non-farms jobs report for April, and the company earnings continue. Big names like AMD, the chip maker, Pfizer, the drug maker, the Walt Disney Company, Uncle Walt's company, Uber, and McDonald's. All of that in the week ahead. But before you go, I just want you to tell me what it was like meeting my king, King Charles. Well, and is it true that you asked him for a selfie?
I did ask him for a selfie, and Mayor Mike Bloomberg hit my hand and made my my iPhone go upside down. And King Charles, we had a long discussion because I was good friends with King Constantine, that we helped build the church in Havana, the Greek church.
Yeah.
And, King Charles, his father was Greek, Prince Philip. And
he was, yes.
Yes, and Prince Pavlo is one of my best friends, His Royal Highness Prince Pavlo. And in addition, the fact he liked the Greek tie I was wearing, and I promised to send him one.
But what did Prince
Is that a
Charles
good
say?
report?
You said, can we have a selfie? What did he say to you? He said,
Mike
no,
Bloomberg,
too close, right?
he says it's too close.
Only
Thank you, John Terry,
Only
for coming
you.
on this Sunday morning.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for being with us for the Cats Roundtable Local Edition, the #1 show on Sunday mornings in New York. Keep listening to us for the Cats Roundtable National Edition between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So we'll be back to you in a few minutes after the news.
Let me tell you about ProHealthConnect.com. It's transforming healthcare payments, providing retailers a seamless process for over-the-counter and healthy benefit programs. By connecting retailers, health plans, and payment processors, ProHealth Connect creates one powerful, unified network. They empower independent grocers and pharmacies to accept health benefit cards without changing how they do business. With over 10,000 locations nationwide, helping more than 1.3 million people access the care and nutrition they need. Go to ProHealthConnect.com.